All right, let's settle this once and for all. It's probably the biggest debate in fitness, and people on both sides are, well, they're passionate. But what does the science actually say? We're going to get into the surprising truth behind free weights versus machines. You've heard it 1,000 times, right? You walk into any gym and you can feel it. The guy in the squat rack thinks machines are a waste of time. The person on the leg press swears by it. So, who's right? Which one is actually better for you? That is the exact question we're going to answer. So first, let's just make sure we're on the same page. Free weights, we're talking barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells. You have to control the entire movement. You are the one keeping it stable. Machines, well, they do the stabilizing for you. They guide you on a fixed path. And that single difference, that's the key to this whole thing. Okay, let's start with the big one, the reason most of us are in the gym in the first place: building muscle. There's this huge fear that if you pick the wrong tool, you're just leaving gains on the table. Is there any truth to that? So here it is, the classic piece of gym wisdom. To get as big as possible, you have to use free weights. It makes sense on the surface, right? You're using all those tiny little stabilizer muscles, so that has to lead to more growth overall. But is that what actually happens? Well, here's the reality check. When scientists actually put this to the test, they took two groups, one using only free weights, one using only machines. And the results was kind of shocking. For the main muscles they were targeting, like the biceps or quads, there was basically no significant difference in muscle growth between the two. And look, this isn't just one random study. Research like this one from Schwanbach and his team backs it up. They said it right there: significant and similar increases in muscle size for both groups. So for pure growth, it looks like it's a tie. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Sure, the big muscles grow the same, but what about all those little stabilizer muscles? Free weights have to be better for those, right? And yeah, you're partly right. If you hook someone up to an EMG machine, which measures electrical activity in the muscles, free weights do show higher activation in those stabilizers. Your body is definitely working harder just to keep everything steady. But here's the kicker, and this is so important. More activation in a single workout doesn't automatically mean more growth over months and years. That link is way weaker than we used to think. So, if muscle growth is a wash, what about strength? This is where it gets really interesting. But first, we have to ask a much better question. What does getting stronger even mean? It all boils down to this fundamental rule in exercise science called the principle of specificity. It's actually super simple. It just means your body gets good at the exact thing you ask it to do. It makes specific adaptations to specific demands. That's it. That's the master rule here. And when you look at the data through that lens, it all makes perfect sense. The group that trained with free weights, they got the strongest at lifting free weights. And the machine group, you already know, they got strongest on the machines. Sure, there was some crossover, but the biggest strength gains always happened in the exact task they practiced. So the main takeaway here is huge. It's not about one making you stronger in some general, abstract way. Strength is always specific. You get strong at the movement you train, period. All right, so we know what happens. Now for the fun part. Let's look under the hood and figure out why it happens. What's going on with our biomechanics that explains all this? Here's the easiest way to think about it. When you use free weights, your brain has to pay what I call a balance tax. A huge chunk of its resources go towards just making sure you don't fall over or drop the weight. Its number one priority is stability. But with a machine, that tax is gone. The stability is built in. That frees up your brain to focus 100% on just producing raw force. Now, if you want to get a little more nerdy, we have to talk about something called the moment arm. Don't let the name scare you. Just think of it as the difficulty lever of an exercise. It's basically how far the weight is from the joint that's doing the work. Picture a bicep curl. As you lift the dumbbell up, the horizontal distance between your elbow and that weight changes. When that distance, the moment arm, is at its longest, that's the hardest part of the lift. The dumbbell didn't get heavier, but the leverage changed, making it feel way harder to your bicep. Here's an example you've definitely felt before. Why is a crunch with your hands over your head so much harder than with your arms crossed on your chest? It's not because your arms are heavy. It's because you've dramatically lengthened the moment arm for your abs, cranking up that difficulty lever to the max.
But wait, what about hormones? You hear people claim free weights create this superior muscle building environment. Well, the research shows men get a slightly bigger but very temporary spike in testosterone after using free weights. But the stress hormone, cortisol, stays the same, and the overall anabolic environment improves pretty much equally for both. That tiny, short-lived spike, it just doesn't seem to make a real difference for long-term growth.
Okay, enough with the science and theory. We've busted the myths, we understand the why. So, how do you actually use this information in your own workouts? It all comes down to picking the right tool for the job. And honestly, the whole decision becomes incredibly simple. It's just 2 steps. First, you have to get crystal clear on what your main goal is. What are you really trying to achieve? And then, once you know that, you just pick the tool that's best suited for that specific goal. So if your goal is overall athleticism, maybe you play a sport, or you just want strength that translates to the real, unpredictable world, then free weights are absolutely your best bet. They are the champion of building coordination, balance, and the skills you need to move powerfully in any direction. Now, what if your goal is simply to build as much muscle as humanly possible? Pure aesthetics, pure hypertrophy. Well, the science is clear. They're both equally great at it. You don't have to choose. In fact, the best approach is probably a hybrid one, using both to attack your muscles from every possible angle. So when do machines really shine? They are the perfect tool when you want to isolate one specific muscle, when you want simplicity and just focus on the movement, or, and this is a huge one, when you're already tired. By removing that balance tax, a machine lets you safely push a muscle to its absolute limit without worrying about your form collapsing. So in the end, we can finally stop having the wrong argument. The question was never, which one is better? That's a dead end. The real question, the one that actually matters for your progress, is which tool is better for you, for your specific goal right now. That's how you get results.